Group work.
I forgot the question. What was the question?
OK, you need to listen to each other.
Pairs.
Teams.
Learning from each other.
Sharing ideas.
I have that in all lessons.
I don't think it's much fun to always do things on your own.
Building up social skills.
Challenging, but fun.
A great team builder.
People get scared of it.
Noise.
Fighting.
Bedlam.
Ah.
But I think it works really well. You just got to think about who's in the groups and what they're going to do.
Children love it. They love working together.
Group work is great preparation for life.
Obviously the negatives are silly behaviour, just choosing to not stay on task.
There is the risk that some of them might misbehave, they might have arguments with each other.
They are off, they're not stuck behind desks, they're in groups, so you've got to have a real tight rein on behaviour.
It can seem intimidating when you start out the group work and your room's a lot noisier.
If you put the wrong girls together who you know are the best of friends and all they're going to do is talk, well then you're setting yourself up for a disaster.
Those students that might have behaviour problems will see, hopefully, the leaders within the group as good role models, sometimes.
It's always, more often than not, it's very positive.
Well, in a small room with 32 kids, not a lot you can do with your furniture.
If it needs to be there, use it.
It's really important how you set up your classroom for group work.
It's not a massive issue because it's very easy just to change the classroom round.
No furniture, on the whole.
If it needs to be moved out of the way, as a group, move out of the way.
It's all about moving all the tables around, which they love to do.
Chairs get in the way.
It's absolutely crucial matching your space to the actual activity.
You decide that the class are really into a particular topic. If you've got your tables in groups already, it means that it's much easier for them to discuss it.
I like to set up my groups really quite close together, all looking at each other, or everyone involved.
Sometimes in lessons I say no chairs, ban the chairs for the lesson, because students need to be standing up in order just to be creative.
And the group's quite separate as well, so that you know they're not going to steal each other's ideas.
So it is important, but you need to give them a bit of leeway and work within the parameters of what you've got.
If you're doing 1 to 6, or the 1s over there, or the 2s, and that definitely mixes them all up.
When you're trying to put your groups together, there's lots of options that you can take.
It's difficult, it is very difficult.
Multiple options, I would argue.
You can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mixed ability.
I like to have in my mind a particular role for certain students.
Someone who is really creative and has that flair.
Boys groups and girls groups.
Gender competition, and that always works quite well.
And it would depend on the activity or the exercise.
Pairs, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s.
Groups will work well with behaviour.
Often students will get work done much quicker.
But it's nice to see them helping each other as well.
What I did is I said, choose your own groups this time, knowing that it would go wrong and they wouldn't do any work.
Very rarely do I allow them to sit with their friends. If I'm feeling very nice, I will.
Spread out some of the weaker students so that you know they're going to gain skills from everybody else, so everyone's going to benefit.
If that can be encouraged at year 7, they get that ethos where they're perhaps there to help each other rather than to pass comment as to that they're not doing very well.
Mixed gender groups.
Another way could be...
Could group your students randomly.
I completely forgot what I was saying.
Who I think works well together, which I'll do previous to the lesson.
As far as I'm concerned, the sharing of ideas is the most important part of group work, and therefore if you vary the groups, you vary the ideas available to that group.
Putting 30 kids into groups can actually take a big chunk of your time sometimes to get it done. And sometimes you can be wrong and they won't work, but if that happens, you just change it around and don't do it again next time, don't you? First thing you do is check your own brain. Right, you check your own brain, you don't know, fine. How about trying a book? Okay, a book can't help you, the internet can't help you, that's fine. Try a buddy. If your team, your buddies can't help you, then as a team, you can come to me.
I won't intervene too much.
Someone's just pulled my power cable out.
A good teacher needs to be intervening at different opportunities.
Teachers like to earn their wages by talking a lot, I tend to find.
You can over-talk.
Wandering around, keeping stum for once is good.
Yes, it is a different role that you take on board.
Because the less that you have to intervene, the more creative they can be when they're in their groups.
I don't think there's a big temptation to jump in.
If the groups are off task, then obviously you need to step in then.
When they're rolling around on the floor punching each other.
Try and take a step back and listen to what they're saying to each other.
It's about them learning and about them being independent as people, so I had to make sure that I would take a back seat.
The trick, I think, is to be able to wander around without the students quite knowing that you're there.
Intervening at key intervals is key, because you have to make sure that they've understood the task, they're on task, and you might then need to give them extensions.
I like to do that, go around group table, each table to table, and just prompt them and challenge their ideas.
I try to only intervene where it looks like I can be of particular assistance on something that they haven't noticed themselves.
I like to use post-it notes and give them little notes to sort of, without having to speak to them, to tell them how they're doing, especially those who are less confident.
Certain groups will need more help than others, and if you can leave a group to get on their own, all the better.
When it comes to planning my group, it depends on the learners and the type of learners they are.
Knowing your class, I think, is essential in terms of being able to put people into groups.
As the year goes on and you know your students better, group work becomes better.
I think I would introduce it gradually, and I think it's important to get to know the group.
Key stage 3, you're teaching them how to do group work. There's always the assumption that we all know what group work means, and actually we don't.
If you have a group full of listeners, they're going to find it really hard because there's no one there to lead them.
Certain students in your group might work really well together, but then if you put two characters together who just are completely unfocused, that will then disrupt the whole group.
You might know clashes of personality.
They will inevitably happen in secondary school.
You know who works well with certain people.
Or when you know that they like a particular type of activity, you can try and harness that.
If I say, I've put you in a group now, if you haven't liked it at the end of the lesson, just let me know, and I'm happy for you to write names of people that you cannot work with, and I will accommodate that as long as it's anonymous.
And just seeing what works and what doesn't. So if it doesn't work, you note it down in an evaluation process and you don't do that again. Boys. Oh, noise.
Well, that sounds like a jet.
Noise is difficult because you say they're not too noisy, but what is too noisy?
Can you hear it?
Noise is necessary in group work. If group work is silent, something is going wrong. There must be one student doing all the work and no discussion going on.
Noise?
People get excited.
You don't have a classroom full of them screaming.
If you try and keep the noise down, that's when they're not given the freedom to actually develop their group work.
But there are other ways of getting pupils to communicate without speaking.
If it starts to get noisy and it's as a result of them being active and getting on with something, then let it happen.
But there are times when your ideas just come so fast that they need to blurt them out, that they need to talk, and the noise level's going to rise.
Noise is not a bad thing.
I think it should be embraced.
So long as it's kind of on-task noise.
Start shouting across the room, that's all wrong.
Inevitably you're going to get a lot more noise because they're supposed to be discussing things, and if you take that out, then you're not getting what you want.
I'd be sad if I didn't hear it in my room.
And I might do a demonstration of what the level of noise that is unacceptable for me would be in the classroom, and I'd expect them not to repeat that level of noise.
You get kids clapping or clicking and not talking.
I don't think you can equate a loud noise with it being bad, or quiet noise with it being good.
So I'll always step in when my little internal gauge goes too high.
But chaos can ensue, I suppose, if the group work isn't structured correctly, as I've seen it. Don't use that, my word.
And I still have year 13s and year 7s arguing, shouting and fighting with each other about their ideas, and they might not agree with each other, and it's really important they learn how to deal with other personalities.
Social skills in teenagers in relation to group work?
Blimey.
How would I get them to use these skills?
Group work is an important social skill.
Often it's girls and boys often have an issue working together. When it's starting to sort of year 9, they actually start fancying each other, or they've got issues in relation to boys and girls that they sometimes find it really difficult to work with each other.
They're not going to get on with every single person they work with.
They're initially very, very involved with what their peers think of them.
Often they will come from primary school with in year 7, but some students don't.
I think that every teacher should always do group work at some point. It does help with their social skills.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the students don't realise it at the time, but they are learning very, very valuable skills.
Often they don't have this social skill of being able to talk to people in a formal situation.
I think that's a bit unfair, really, to say, teenagers. It's like I meet some adults just in Tesco's and I'm like, your social skills are poor, you're really rude. I know teenagers who are more polite than you.
As long as you keep reminding them of it.
And I say, look, everybody's entitled to an answer, whether it's right or wrong, or to put their point of view forward.
One skill that I think lots of teenagers lack at first is the skill of getting themselves unstuck.
Yet students don't want to work with certain other students, and it's sort of saying to them, you're only working with these people for 20 minutes. You might get out into the workplace and have to spend 35 hours a week with that person that you don't necessarily get along with. So the easier and the more you practice it now, the easier your life will be when you do get out into the workplace.
And so hopefully by the time I've done lots of group work with my teenagers, they'll be able to persevere and complete the tasks set without giving up.
It can take a bit of time, but it's good for them to learn to respect each other and to respect their views.
It can be quite scary doing group work.
I think group work can fail if
they start falling out and arguing.
I think the most important and crucial part is the way that you choose your groups.
When I first started, you assume they know group work, all the basics like listening to each other and not talking.
If you find that there's members of the group that aren't working as a team.
We do get students who are overly dominant, who turn it into a piece of individual work and just insist that everything is done their way.
That one person who's on the work comes out very disgruntled, and those 3 people go away having learnt nothing, and you feel pretty bad about yourself and your lesson.
That's the danger of it, is that you do get people that just lay back and don't do the work.
If that happens, then we need to maybe remove that person and put them in a group where people aren't such pushovers.
Saying no, being negative, not willing to try things.
As a teacher, you don't ever want to lose control, but with group work you have to lose an element of control with it.
As a teacher, carefully planning those groups and being aware when those groups aren't working. You wouldn't want to put a student in a vulnerable position.
And also, try not to give them too much instruction. It's group work, it's not teacher-led, it's group work. You want them to find the answers for themselves.